Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind, your Friday encouragement session for job seekers. We are so delighted to have you here. My name is Shira Lotzar. I am a higher purpose champion. I'm an association recruiter. I'm also a career coach. Love to help job seekers to connect meaningfully with employers. I do resume writing and LinkedIn profiles and networking and interviewing. And I'm also the co-founder and volunteer with boomerworks.org. We are a charitable organization helping professionals age 50 plus to re-career into self-employment. Check us out, boomerworks.org. So today we have our guest experts, Michele Wright, who's an executive recruiter in accounting and finance. Hi, Michele. Corliss is not able to be here, but her faithful, trusted sidekick, Wendy Thompson, is. We're delighted to have her as well. She's helps people with federal government resumes. Kiki's not able to be with us just yet, but Vern Schellenger is here, who's an expert in relationship management and networking, and Rick Webb, who's a government contracting recruiter. And so we are so delighted to have them here. And so to start things off, we're going to be starting out with our typical 10-minute breakout session, where in that group, you're going to identify your group's top question or questions, right? So you're going to assign a scribe in your group who can kind of capture all of the questions and make sure to wait to put your questions in the chat box once you get back into the main room, because if you put them in your breakout room, no one's going to see them. Okay. And also in that time, you can share not only your questions, but some best practices from your job search. And just make sure that everyone has some equal time to share. That's kind of important. All right. So moving on here, after we get back from the breakout room, we're going to have a group discussion. Please remain muted when you're in that room so that the guest experts can have some time to share our responses to your questions, and put your questions in the chat box only. If there are any unanswered questions, like we just didn't get time to your question, please email me here at shira@purposefulhire.com, and either I or one of our experts will make sure to answer your question. At 10:05, we're going to have a 10-minute speed networking session. Actually, this time we're going to go back to our round robin. For those of you who've been with us when we've done this before, we've done this a couple times successfully. So what we'll do is, and you want to prepare for this in advance, okay? You're going to have 10 seconds, not 15, not 30, 10, to state the kind of job you're looking for. So your career, like where you're going, and maybe the industry, but that's it. Just your name, kind of job you're looking for, and your industry. No backstory, no career history, just what you're doing in the future, but 10 seconds worth, okay? So we can get through everybody in that kind of 10 or 15 minutes. Afterwards, we will want you to keep in touch with each other through what we're calling our Power Networking spreadsheet. We have the link here. The recording of the Q&A will be posted on my website at this link, and then we have a job search resources page for all kinds of tips and articles and so forth, also on my website. And I will put all of this in the chat box when we're done. So with that, we actually have some folks who are joining us here, and we're going to go ahead and get into our breakout room. So give me 1 second to get you guys up and going. Okay, and all right, so go ahead and hit your blue join button to get into your room, and we'll see you back here in 10 minutes. Hi, Amani, we just went into breakout room, so I'm going to assign you to one right now. Hey, Bonnie, we just went into breakout, so I'll put you in run one now. And for those who are joining on the recording, feel free to fast forward about 8 or 9 minutes, and we'll join you back in the main room. Hey, ladies, we're in breakout rooms. Did you just come back from it? Oh, here. Let me go ahead and move you guys. We're still in there for another minute. If you'd like to join in. Everyone will be back in a couple of minutes. Hey, Ruth, people are just finishing up breakouts, so they should be back in another minute. Hey, Sonia, people are just finishing up breakouts, so everyone should be back here in another minute. Oh, audio issues. Wow. Interesting. But you can hear me, right? Okay, good. So at least we've got the chat box. That's a good thing. Yes, Easter was very blessed. Charles, just letting you know that your video is partially blocked. All right, so I understand that there were some audio issues with some of you guys, but my understanding is you can hear me. If you can hear me, nod your head. Okay, we're good. So that was really kind of cute, the bobbing heads. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get into our group chat. Please, if you were the scribe of your meeting, please put your question in the chat box. So let's go ahead and before we get going, officially, Rick, one of our experts, and we were chatting in advance, and he had a couple of tips for some online tools. Rick, do you want to raise your mic and share with folks? You are on mute. Rick, you're still on mute.
Yeah, the mute button just moves around on me. So I wanted to share a couple tools, and actually Shira told me to put them into the chat box. So I did, and they disappeared. So I'm having to redo them. The first one is called truepeoplesearch.com, and that is, and I want to be clear, it is not peoplesearch.com. Okay, so this is a tool to help you get phone numbers, email addresses, social media addresses. And so as a recruiter, we use these kind of tools to dig into companies, to dig into people, to find people to recruit with. But you can utilize it to find out, who, contacts at certain locations, or if you're trying to network, which is probably one of the most important things that we should be doing. You can find those phone numbers of past colleagues that you may have worked with. It's 100% free, true people search. The other one is a tool for designing, hold on, let me put it in. It's called resumeworded.com. And that is a tool if you want to have something where you upload your resume into a tool that will evaluate your resume. It's designed by recruiters, which I'm not associated with, but it goes in depth on impact of your resume, clarity, your skills, and the style, and it will give you a score between 1 and 100. 85 and above is desirable. I put in one of my old resumes, just so you know, from 12 years ago, and I got a 45 out of 100. So I have some work to do, but there's a million different views on resumes. This is just one tool that you can use to help you get started. It's free, but they also have a pay version that will kind of go more in the weeds with your resumes. Totally just wanted to throw that out there.
Thanks, Rick. And Wendy, there was also another tool you wanted to share, because that's about more of the customizing in terms of the keywords.
Yeah, we've talked about JobScan before, I believe, and a lot of you are familiar with it, but it's jobscan.co, no M on the end.
Is it .co or .io?
It's CO.
It is CO, okay.
So, and that is where you can put, you have 2 text boxes. You can put your resume in one and the job description or the vacancy announcement qualifications in another, and it'll do a comparison scan and give you, your percentage match as well, and also kind of show you what skills you're missing. So
thanks for that, Wendy and Rick. For those of you who haven't been on our calls before or haven't heard us talk about this, this always bears repeating how important it is to match up the keywords on your resume with the keywords in the job announcement. We cannot emphasize that enough, because recruiters are doing a very quick scan, whether it's, their computer might be, meaning the ATS, the applicant tracking system, or they themselves might just be doing an eyeball scan. But either which way, it is going lightning speed. And if they do not see the keywords that match up to that announcement, you're not getting interviewed, unless the other tip that we always mention is getting an internal champion, an advocate, somebody internally who can vouch for you, or at least can get you noticed, even if it's not somebody who knows you, but somebody who knows of you through someone else, and they can sort of flag your resume and airlift it out of the applicant tracking system, or at least get you noticed in front of the hiring manager. It is incredibly important. It bears repeating every single meeting. And one of the ways we always talk about is going to LinkedIn, putting in the name of the organization in the search bar in the upper left-hand corner, hit enter, and then you would do a sub search for, excuse me, for the name of the hiring manager or the name of the recruiter or the HR person. If that person's a second level connection to you, reach out to your mutual first level connection and see if that person would mind at least forwarding your resume to the hiring manager for extra consideration. Okay, so we always want to make sure that people are using that tip. All right, so with that, Wendy, do you want to kick us off with our chat box?
Sure. So speaking of ATS systems, so this question says, there's sometimes a question that asks yes or no. For example, are you willing to relocate? And seemingly there, the ATS hasn't kept up with the current landscape. So this brings in a lot of factors. How open are employers now to remote or hybrid work location options?
That's a great question. In fact, we were with the experts, we were talking about this very thing right before the call. And I would say that the answer to that would be increasingly. Increasingly. And I don't mean like since April, I mean, so literally over the last several months, since we've really been into this remote thing, there are more and more employers, recruiters, HR people who are saying, you know what, we've been doing this remote thing just fine. Why not keep it up now? I'm not saying that everybody's feeling that way. I'm not saying that there's not going to be some sort of hybrid. There is going to be some sort of hybrid situation when we come back to work, but we are seeing more and more HR people more open to the idea of hiring full-time remote, even post-pandemic. You have to ask the question. In fact, a lot of people are asking, a lot of job seekers are asking the question. It's kind of coming rote, but you got to be flexible, right? So you might have that desire that may or may not work with what the employer is looking for. Because listen, at the end of the day, while we can all work remotely, we have been working remotely, it does cut back on the collaboration factor, right? So there are a lot of employers that are trying to bring people back in, even if it's 2 or 3 days a week, just for that sort of the feeling of team building. So please know that that is still there, but there are more and more people who are open to it. So that would be that answer. All right, Wendy, next question.
So this is a good one that we talk about a lot. How long should you wait to follow up after the interview?
Yeah, great question. I'm going to punt this one to Rick.
Oh. Thank you, Shira. Well, I mean, there's no hard and fast rule, but you want to get your thank you letter out pretty quick. And then if you haven't heard within a week, maybe week and a half, because I think we've talked about this before. If a company wants you, they will definitely let you know that in different ways. And so if you haven't heard anything, it's definitely okay to send a follow-up. But just know that you'll be getting some kind of hint if they're truly interested or they want to continue the process with you.
Right. And remember that recruiting, even for corporate recruiters, your candidacy may not, it's top of mind for you, but not top of mind for them. That's just the reality, right? These are very, very busy people. And so you may not hear back in the time that you're expecting, even if they've actually indicated to you at the end of the interview, hey, you should be hearing back from us one or the other in 2 weeks. That may not happen either. In fact, I'll just give you a quick example on the front end of the process. So there's somebody on our HMM call who behind the scenes I've actually been helping to land an interview. I know somebody, an employer who has an opening that's actually right for this person. So I've been doing a little go-between. And I had sent this person's resume over. I think I don't know if it's been 2 weeks now, something like that. And the employer said, oh, great, thanks, Shira, for the recommendation. I'm happy to reach out. And I'm thinking it happened. And the person on this call wrote me the other day saying, well, she hasn't reached out yet. So I did a follow-up note. And the employer, the HR person says to me, it's very interesting. The employer says to me, well, we actually have more than one opening at that person's level. And we, in the HR team, we've been spending the last couple of weeks looking at what our needs are. Like we actually haven't even been ready to interview anybody. So then she said to me, oh, tell the person they should be hearing from me, by the end of the week, like now, like by today. Now that was me happy. I happened to be the go-between, but this person would not actually have no idea what was going on behind the scenes. This employer was not ready to reach out to them. Okay. So that can happen at any stage of the process, whether it's the beginning or after the person you've interviewed. Things change behind the scenes. The job could be changing. New candidates could be coming in. Hiring managers or teammates could have different opinions about your candidacy or others. I mean, and plus, if it's a small enough organization, recruiting is really the bottom of the barrel. If it's just the HR person who's doing it, they've got all kinds of other things on their plate. If it's just the hiring manager doing that, even more so. So you really have to pack your patience with these searches. You never know when someone's going to get back to you. In your mind, it might be taking forever. In their mind, they're onto other things. And if you are the one that they want, they will track you down. As I like to say, they will send you a carrier pigeon if they need to come find you if you're the one they want. So you don't necessarily have to follow up. If you want to, you can. But if they don't respond in a timely way, just know that they're quite busy. So
Shira, one other thing you can do in the interview, at the end of the interview, obviously you want to, if it's a good interview, you want to ask for the job. You want to say, I think I'm a great fit for the job. But then the last thing to say, what are the next steps in the process? When will I expect you to be hearing? And then they might say 1 to 2 weeks. And like Shira said, they won't get back to you in 1 to 2 weeks, but at least they've said that to you so that when you follow up, you don't feel like you're, guilty or anything. They said 1 to 2 weeks. It's been 1 to 2 weeks. I haven't heard from them. So I'll email them or call them or whatever I'll do. So
actually, whatever they say, I'd wait an additional week.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So they say, 2 weeks, do 3.
Yeah.
So Charles, I see that you raised your hand. If you could ask your question in a pretty succinct way, that'd be great. Thanks so much.
Yeah, so I just wanted to follow up on that line of discussion and share that, for example, I work for the state of Maryland. The state of Maryland's hiring process is very elongated. So when we meet with people, we put out a listing, and it may have some age to it. They put it out generally for a year. By the time we get to people, it could be 6 months later, and then we schedule an interview. When we get to the point where we're making an offer, we don't make the direct offer, our HR team does, and it goes through several reviews downstream. There's a local HR team, there's a central HR team. and they do some background checking and things like that. So I always tell people, it's going to be weeks before you
Well,
get
this is
back
it.
to
You
you.
never know, right? You
You
never
just
know the
never know.
process that people are
Yeah.
going through on the back end. So
Right.
yeah, pack your patience. Thank you, Charles. All right, Wendy, next question.
So just related to that, a quick one. It came up in our group. Is it a good idea to say to them, like Vern, you were saying, following up on the timetable, but is it a good idea to suggest that, hey, I'll follow up with you on a specific date? Or is that putting too much pressure on the hiring manager or the recruiter? Should you rather take their lead?
Vern?
I don't know that I would do a specific date. I mean, listen to everything Shira just said. I mean, there's just a million things going on. You could say that, and you can follow up on that date, and you still not get a response.
Right.
The key thing is you do want to follow up at some point, as Shira said, but I don't know that I'd do a specific date. That's my 2 cents.
Yep, I agree.
Gotcha.
All right, Wendy?
Okay. Let's see. How do you negotiate salary when a job description is asking for a particular number of years experience and you may have more than that?
Right. So understand that when employers put out the years of experience, it is because of age discrimination laws, they are not allowed to, they're supposed to only say the minimum number. Okay. So they'll say, they should use the word minimum, minimum 3 to 5, minimum 5 to 7, 10. By the way, they will, I've never actually seen anybody say more than what's called 10 to 15 years. They'll say minimum 10 to 15 years plus. That is the indication, that's code for we want a seasoned person, just so you know that. We want a seasoned person. I've never seen anybody say 20, 25 years. Just doesn't exist. Not that they wouldn't hire somebody that experience, but 10 to 15 years. So assume that they know that you are likely or could very well have more years of experience, but that's not necessarily a negotiation factor. It might be, but it might not be, because the employer has a lot of different variables that they're looking at when they're setting compensation. I mean, this is a whole topic that any one of us in the HR world, I know Sonia's been nodding her head here as I've been talking, she's in HR, we could have a whole compensation conversation and how people set those ranges. Some people have what's called a salary band, the low point, the midpoint, the high point. They decide how competitive they want to be in the market for that role, and they calculate, the role based on your experience. It's very complicated. So it's not necessarily true that if you have more experience, they're going to pay you more. There are a lot of other variables that go in. Now, you should be a good negotiator anyway, right? Always try to get as much as you can, but that may not be relevant to the number of years. So that's the answer to that. Rick or Vern, any other thoughts about that?
I guess, they're gonna put that in the job description. The more important thing is how well does your actual experience in the interview match up with what they're looking for? Because I could have 5 years experience, Shira could have 10, but based on my interview and what I told them I could do, and they might hire me with only 5 years experience. Right.
And Michele, I'm sorry, I meant to call on you as well. Do you have any comments on this?
No, I agree with everything. And there's so many factors I think that go with setting compensation. But to Vern's point, I think negotiating your salary is going to be more around your alignment of skills, how quickly maybe you can jump in and contribute. That could be aligned with your years of experience, but I think that's more relevant to what they're asking for and what you can do for them right away.
Yeah, and we've had on many of these HMM calls the whole salary negotiation conversation, and I would encourage you to look back in some of our videos. But in short, in terms of how to negotiate, the general rule of thumb is start high, and you can always go lower. Okay, so whatever that number is that you put out there, you don't want to put a range. Never, 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 never give the employer a range, because they will always go for the low number. Always. All right. But if you go with one number that's at the high end, right? I'm targeting, I always say, a total cash compensation package in the then like, $125,000 range, you can use the word range, but you're not giving two numbers. You're simply saying kind of in that area. Then they can always walk you down if they can't afford that, but you're not going to be able to walk them up. It's impossible to do that usually. So you got to be really careful when you go into that first negotiation, that you start at the high end. I've seen a lot of people almost trip over themselves and give the employer a low number because they don't want to screen themselves out of the opportunity. And then at the very end, then they try to negotiate up, and then it's really hard to come back from that. So be really careful in giving what I call a realistic high number, so you can walk down. All right, Wendy.
There are several questions around this about how to structure a resume as an experienced professional, how far back to go on your resume, etc.
Yeah, so this is a pretty common question. Different recruiters have different responses. I'm actually a resume writer as well. And I typically say for seasoned people to go back about 20 years. Some people say 10 or 15. I think that can be a little bit too late depending upon what level you're going for. But I think that 20 is a really solid number. Beyond that, it gets a little bit dicey. If there's experience that you have prior to 20 years, you really, really feel needs to go on the resume, I suggest having a section called prior experience. And then underneath it, you would simply list the company and the title, no dates, company title. The example I'd like to give is I once was doing a resume for somebody who's a communications executive, but many years ago, she was a journalist and she won a Pulitzer Prize. And she felt that was kind of a neat thing to put on her resume. And so we kind of tucked it away, but didn't put any dates. So I think 20 is a really good number-ish to put down.
Okay, let's see. Suggested questions to ask in a phone screen interview conducted by an external group or an external recruiter.
So questions for the candidate to ask the phone screener.
That's what it sounds like.
When it's a third party who's conducting the interview, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm one of those, but I'm gonna shut up here. Michele, you're also a third party. Do you wanna give us a response to that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's limited amount of information that we know. I guess it depends on the recruiter and how close their relationship is with, the hiring manager or the company. But I know some good questions to kind of get a better understanding of that relationship is whether the recruiter maybe has worked with how long the recruiter has worked with the company before, to kind of give you a sense of, their established relationship, if they've placed, other candidates there before, if they've worked with a particular hiring manager before, that might help give you a better sense of how well they work together. And then, they will probably give you more information as well in terms of what they know, any insights that might help you throughout the process.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Michele. And along those lines to ask, what they know about the corporate culture, what they know about the hiring manager, the insights that they have. Different recruiters ask different questions of the employer, right? Different employers, different recruiters have different levels of research that they do. The more research they've done, the more information they can pass on to you. And because they're a third party, they can frame it to you in a way where you can have kind of an open conversation, because you're not talking to the employer, you're talking to the recruiter. And so, sometimes they can let their hair down a little bit and share with you some insights that might be helpful for you to know. So feel free to probe that recruiter and just kind of see what they glean. This might be the first time they've worked with that employer, and that's fine. But hopefully they've done some sort of background research to understand the role, the culture, the supervisor, what have you, to give you some insight. So yeah, good question. Wendy?
And on the topic of recruiters, suggestions for finding executive recruiters that specialize in your industry or sector.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that actually leads to a different question first, and that is, what's a recruiter? Yeah, it's a question that comes up because we use this term interchangeably for people who work inside a company versus a third party. So I think it bears a quick definition. So the term corporate recruiter, okay, is somebody who works for a company. let's say you're the corporate recruiter for Amazon or Apple or whatever, right? You work in, actually, Rick right here. Rick is a corporate recruiter for a government contracting firm. So Rick has X number of open positions on his desk for his company. So when you get recruited by Rick, you know you're going to be working for that company. But somebody like myself or Michele, we are third-party recruiters, which means that we have lots of different clients. Now, our titles are not third-party recruiter and corporate recruiter. They still just might be recruiter. That's why there's a lot of misunderstanding in the market for job seekers. Like, wait, what? Who am I talking to? Right? So what I would do is go to LinkedIn. Okay. So what you can do is you can just type in the word recruiter. Start with that. Now there's other terminology that could be used. So for example, if you are in the tech world, you could say technical recruiter, because that's actually a title. Corporate recruiters sometimes go by terms other than recruiter, like talent acquisition something or another, like talent acquisition director or specialist or whatever. And so you could play with that kind of title as well. But sometimes you're just not going to know unless you actually look at where the person works. So if you type in recruiter and put in the sort by location, so put in the location that you're looking at, and you start looking down the list, what'll happen is you'll see where they work. Now, sometimes it'll be very obvious. They'll say, recruiter or talent acquisition specialist for Amazon. Well, then you know it's a corporate recruiter. But it might be a company you've never heard of. It could be that that's a third party. The other thing you may want to do is not just put in recruiter, or in this case, technical recruiter, but put in recruiter, and then you can say, like, let's say you're in the nonprofit sector, put nonprofit, or CFO, or any kind of terminology that relates to either the industry you're looking for or the career field that you're in. Sometimes the list will actually narrow down to people who recruit for that specialty. Why? Because what the recruiter will often do is in their own about section, or even in their headline, they might say recruiter for XYZ, project managers, PMPs, this and that, and they'll tuck it in there so that what'll happen is those are the people that'll come up to the top of the page. So put recruiter, and then whatever the industry is or the career field is, and then just sort of look down the page and see if you can figure out kind of whether they're corporate or whether they're a third party. All right, Wendy.
How do you handle a job you held for only a few months on your resume?
Great question. Rick, I'll put this one to you.
This is part of our group, so Vern and I kind of talked about it. But if it's for a couple months and it's not going to show a huge gap between jobs, it's probably not necessary to have in there. But if it's, this is what we talked about, if there's a series of short-term jobs, you want to be able to be ready to speak about that or to that. Because as a recruiter, when I'm looking at that, I'm thinking, why did this person leave, these 4 companies after 6 months? And there may be valid reasons for it. Maybe you're working with a temp firm that, for 6-month contracts type of thing. But those are things that you want to think about and be able to answer in an interview for that.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. And the other thing too, and this is almost like a side kind of concept, is it has to do also with the way that you structure your resume and how much weight you put for each job. So for example, if there are jobs that are much more relevant to the job that you're looking for or your brand, those are the jobs that need to have more weight, meaning more substance. More accomplishments. So optically, when the employer looks at your resume, their eye is caught by that particular job. Meaning, if you have a short tenure job, or not even just short tenure, but a job that's not particularly relevant for, not as related to the job that you're looking for, minimize a little bit. You're still saying that you did it, but you're not shouting it to the world. It might just be company title, dates, maybe just a couple of lines of what you did. But some of those other opportunities, you're going to actually give more weight to. Laura, just raised your hand.
Thank you, Shira. Yeah, I had a short stint with a federal, well, it was like 5 months with a federal agency, and I want another federal job. So do I just say kind of the truth that it wasn't a good fit, the position wasn't a good fit for me, or how would you handle that?
Wendy, you're our federal person.
So yeah, I would just think about what your reasons for moving on are, and then frame those in a positive way, that that it wasn't the best fit for you, and then focus on why the position you're seeking is a good fit for you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you would still put it on the resume as like the most current position?
I would, for sure, because you're showing that you've been in the federal space and you have that knowledge and experience to that point.
Very quick. If it was I guess it was Title 42. So am I eligible to look for in the position of current or former federal employee?
Only if you have reinstatement status, which you only get by being there for 3 years.
Oh, so, okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now I see that Jen raised her hand and we're getting into hand raising now. Now, normally we do go into the chat box. So Jen, if you could just press pause here, I do want to make sure that we get through our chat box. And if we have time afterwards, actually after we get back, I'd love to hear your question. Okay, Wendy.
So this is an interesting question. Someone said, what's the best way to avoid being breadcrumbed? And then someone asked to define that term, and it's defined as the process of stalling a candidate during the interview process. At the extreme end, a candidate can be given a verbal offer, but a written job offer never materializes. So I hadn't heard of that either.
I haven't heard of it either. And the initial part of the question was how to avoid being breadcrumbed?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, again, I've never heard of it, but I don't think there's any way to avoid it. You can't control what the employer is going to do. I mean, you just do your best to be the stellar candidate that you are, and whatever their process is their process. I wish I had an actual response to that. Yeah, I've never heard of it. I'm sorry.
I mean, I think it goes back to being patient, because
Yeah.
we had a situation where we had a contingent offer out to a candidate and we lost a major contract. And so we want to try to place our internal people and transition them. And so it was a difficult situation. And the candidate we had a contingent offer to was really great, but we had good people within the company that we're trying to keep as well. So there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes, like Shira had mentioned, that you have to kind of work out. So patience is key.
It is key. One thing I will say though is if you get a verbal offer, this is interesting because the written offer is really where it counts. I mean, the verbal offer is important too. Don't get me wrong; it is still legal, but it's really a good idea before you make any life decisions like quitting your other job, your current job, or any sort of major decisions, to wait until you have that written offer in hand, just as a kind of just to have it signed, sealed, and delivered. So yeah, that's just kind of the sidebar.
In the government space, we tell them not to talk to their current employer until their clearance has been processed.
That's a whole other thing. Yeah.
That's pretty important.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Wendy.
So this is kind of just a current conversation about the COVID vaccine status. If anyone is encountering questions about your status of getting the vaccine, and will a vaccine be required to return to work?
Yeah, that is definitely a conversation, and it's ever changing, and there's obviously some legal implications to all of this as to whether employers can ask you to be vaccinated. Is there HIPAA violations, or is it going to fall into the category of, well, look, when you're a child, you have to get certain vaccines to enter into kindergarten. So, I mean, I think this is a TBD. I don't feel authorized really to talk much about it other than to acknowledge that this is an ongoing conversation. I would definitely recommend Google it, right? Just what's literally put that question in Google and see what the latest articles are on that, just to kind of keep yourself abreast of what's happening. Yeah, I think that time will tell how this all shakes out.
Let's see. So what should you do if an interviewer asks what year you graduated from high school?
Right, great question. So they should not be asking that question, first of all. That is illegal. Although I think, Wendy, am I correct that the government finally stopped asking that question? Because they used to ask it on USA Jobs. Is that right? Have they stopped doing that?
They have, yeah.
They stopped it,
Mhm.
which was always a curiosity to me. I would just be a little bit cute about it and say, well, a long time ago or a while back, I would not answer that question. It's been a minute, something like that. And then I would pivot the answer but I'd be delighted to share with you how many years of experience I've had relevant to this role. That's how I would do it. Vern, do you have a better response?
No, that's a great response. Other than if they really pressed you on it, this would be me personally. I would basically say, well, you're not really allowed to ask me that question.
Yeah. Or is that relevant to the role? I mean, if you want to
Yeah. What is
Yeah.
this? What? Yeah.
Yeah, but because I'm hoping that we can focus more on my years of experience that are relevant to the role rather than my years of life, right?
Yeah.
Just be gentle about it. You don't want to be antagonistic, but yeah, just a little.
Right. Yeah. So as I said, Shira's answer is the right one, but if they kept pressing me,
If they kept pressing, right? Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to hold my composure. I'd begin to wonder do I really want to work for this employer? If they're,
Like, why are they so interested in that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Wendy.
Should you ever reapply for a job? If you, for example, interviewed for the job 8 months ago and the position has not been filled, I was told they're trying to fill other positions, but the HR staff said that I'm still a candidate.
So equivocally, I would say yes, you can always reapply. It's interesting. I had this situation once where actually it was precisely this. I had a coaching client I mentioned earlier that I write resumes and so forth. And somebody came to me and we did her resume. Well, as it turns out, she had applied for a job about 6 or 8 months prior to her meeting me she had applied with a completely different resume. She didn't get interviewed or anything. We worked together, redid her resume. She reapplied for the role because apparently it was still open. She got interviewed and she got hired with the new resume. My point is that unto itself could change the deal. So if you, for example, the first time you submitted a resume that was less customized, or if maybe they reposted the job, maybe the job has changed a little bit, feel free to reapply for it and make sure that it's definitely customized. Rick, do you have any thoughts, or Michelle?
The customization is so key. I say this every week almost as I feel like a parrot, but it's so key for getting the recruiter's attention, and even in an ATS system, for getting past that screening in the ATS system, they're going to be looking at your keywords and the things that you've done that are relevant to the job. So it's so key to make sure that your resume shows that.
Yeah, and you can reapply. You absolutely can.
Yes.
It happens all the time. Yeah, because you never know. You could have got lost in the mix, the first time around, and then suddenly you're noticed the second time. And again, get an internal champion if you can. That's really who tends to flag your resume in front of the hiring manager.
One last thing, Shira. It depends where you get looked at in the process. If the job's been out for a month and you apply at week 3, they may never get to you. So that's why you want to apply as soon as possible. But
that's right.
There's a lot of things that could go wrong on the recruiting side where they don't see you.
Exactly right. You never know. Your resume could just get lost in there. And especially if all they have is a resume, if they don't have a referral, it's very easy to get mixed with everyone else. All right, so it's 10:07. So if there are other questions that have not been answered, please feel free to shoot me a note. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and put up our contact information here. All right. So this is actually our full team. We don't have everybody here today, but if there's any one of us that you want to get in touch with, please feel free to contact us. I'm going to leave this slide up here for just a few more seconds if anybody would like to take a picture of it. Okay. And here are some local job support groups that you might be interested in. For the most part, all of these are free. They meet on a weekly basis, with the exception of the Career Gateway on the bottom right, which has a what they call it's a week-long boot camp kind of a thing, and it costs $75, but they're all terrific groups. Highly encourage you to take advantage of them. Okay. And if you're interested in my bi-weekly newsletter, feel free to shoot me a note. Happy to put you on my list. I try to write some words of inspiration and encouragement for you. Been doing that since January. All right, and so I always like to end with a scripture quote for inspiration, and this one is from Isaiah: "Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength." So we just pray that you are feeling hopeful today for the possibilities of tomorrow. And along those lines, I do now offer a prayer meeting immediately following today's meeting. So if you would like to stick around for that, you are certainly welcome to. All right, so we're going to go into our round robin speed networking. This is the third time we're going to try this. First 2 times have worked pretty well. So again, you want to be prepared here. When it's your turn, I'm just going to go around the room and call people out by name. State your name, the type of role you're seeking. So you can say, I'm seeking, I'm looking for a project manager role or an accounting role or HR, senior HR position, whatever it is. If you have an industry, which some of you don't, but if you do, say in the nonprofit industry, in government contracting. And that's all. Please do not share your career history with us. We'd love to hear it, but we just unfortunately don't have time because we have too many people on the call. Right as soon as you're finished, if you're comfortable with this, put your name and your email address in the chat box. So you have your 10 seconds, and then immediately pop your information in the chat box. If you have a lead for somebody or want to network with them, please do contact them offline. And the way I like to think about this speed networking is, remember the game when we were little, the game of concentration, right? So you'd pick a card and then you'd find the other card that was down like 3 rows. That might be you. You might have somebody who's a project manager and you're a project manager and you want to network with them. So make sure to really be thinking about the Hollywood squares that we have and who you want to connect with. All right. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start. And I'm just going to go around my tile. So Jen Eberhardt, you are my first person. So you'd like to give us your 10 seconds? And everybody make sure to unmute yourself so we can go pretty quickly.
Hi, everybody. I'm a job services specialist with the state of Maryland. I'm currently not looking for a job. I come on these to learn tips to help the folks I work with. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Shalom.
Oh, hi, I'm Shalom Raboya. My background is executive support, and I'm looking either in the event planning space or in the real estate space.
Ruth DeHart.
Hi, I'm Ruth DeHart. I'm a change management practitioner. I'm looking for a position in senior living industry.
Thanks, Ruth. Sonia Lee. Oh, you're not. Oh, you can't. That's right. Your audio is not working. Well, I know Sonia is a very seasoned senior HR leader who has cross-sectoral experience. So HR, that's Sonia. Okay. Ryan.
Yes, my name is Ryan Jones, PhD in mechanical engineering. I'm looking for a job in applied science and technology, preferably in the federal services sector, but also private industry as well.
Thanks, Ryan. Bonnie Fedchuk.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Fedchuk. I am looking for a role as an executive director or CEO of a nonprofit.
Thanks. Chiquita O'Kane.
Hi, I'm Chiquita O'Kane, and I'm looking for a position in the federal government in project management or program management and contract management. Thank you.
Jean the Camden.
I am Jean Camden. I'm a finance and accounting professional. I'm looking for opportunity in either audit, risk management, or compliance.
Thanks. Ty Smith.
My name is Ty Smith. I'm looking for a position as a customer advocate or a pension administrator in the area of association management or the medical area or the financial area.
Thanks. Carolyn Hurley.
Hi, I'm Caroline Hurley, and I'm a government relations lawyer lobbyist, and I'm looking for a job representing the high-tech industry before Congress and the administration.
Thank you, Carolyn. Don Lovett. Don, can you hear us? Oh, there you go.
Yes, Don Lovett. I'm looking for a CIO advisory role, and I will put my info on the chat.
Thank you, Don. Kelly Nugent.
Kelly Nugent, looking for an inside or outside kind of executive position or a business development representative position, either in the IT telecom or cloud industry or physical security as an access control and security cameras.
Thanks, Kelly. Amani.
My name is Amani. I am seeking a job in business analyst or management analyst. And in federal, I prefer federal government work.
Great. Jennifer Murray.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Murray, and I'm looking for a project management, program management role. And I'm looking in the contract government sector.
Thanks. Dia Stokes-Kelly.
My name's Dia Stokes-Kelly, and my passion is organizing special events and trade show booths. I'm looking for a corporate position and will be available for work starting in August.
Thanks so much. Will Shermer.
Morning, my name is Will Shermer. I'm looking for work as a data analyst or technical writer or business analyst or a combination of all of those. Preferring the insurance industry, but I'm open to any industries.
Thanks, Will. Matt Lackenbach.
Hello, my name is Matt Lackenbach, and my background is in international affairs with a focus on Middle East conflict resolution, and I'm interested in a position working on that. However, I also have a dream working to open a restaurant, so I've been developing that as well. So also open to a position as an assistant manager in a restaurant.
Great. Jamie Ballou.
Good morning, I'm Jamie Bollier. I am a nonprofit association professional, and I'm seeking a senior director or VP level role in that sector, focusing on building strategy to drive membership value, including professional development, leadership development, programming, community building, and diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives.
Thanks, Jamie. Joan Rademacher.
Hi, I'm Joan Rademacher, and I'm currently employed, but my federal contract is ending, and I'm positioning myself just in case something happens. What I would like is another role as a senior budget analyst for a federal agency. That's what I'm looking for. And if I have my druthers, I'd like remote. It's so much more peaceful.
I get it. Thank you, Jen. All right, Mike. I don't have your last name there. There you go.
Hey, good morning. Mike Thibodeau in data protection and privacy, targeting mostly high-tech companies that are using your data, making sure that we use it ethically and that you get utility out of it. Target companies, Facebook, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and similar.
Great, thanks. Heidi Taza. Heidi, are you with us? You're on mute. Okay, Heidi might have left us for the moment. We'll come back. And Joyce, it sounds like you are not looking for a new job. So if I'm mistaken, that please let me know. I think you texted me about that. All right, so we have Nia Wright.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm currently looking for a communication specialist, job title, and then preferred in a government, like either government or a contracting agency, both. And I also have a dream job that I'm looking for. It's more leaning to intelligent analyst or linguist in the government.
Great, thank you, Nia. Scott Boudreau.
Boudreau, certified production inventory management, looking for a job in central New Jersey.
Thank you. Collins. I'm not going to pronounce your last name correctly. Collins, are you with us? Hey, Collins. Okay. Maybe he's okay. So have I missed anybody here who would like to share? All right, so make sure that you follow up with folks offline. And this is a very safe group, right? We're all family here. So you guys should be colleagues for each other and following up and making sure that you have Zoom coffees. This is a time for networking. You never know who knows who. And even if somebody is not in your industry or not in your career field, everybody's got a really extensive network. So good idea to get to know each other and see how you can be of mutual help. All right. So with that,
hey, Shira, what everyone should do it. I mean, also when they put their email, put their LinkedIn profile too.
That's always a great idea. Thanks, Kelly. Yep. If you can put your LinkedIn profile, that would be terrific. All right. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. And as we do, we have another minute or so. Jen, you had wanted to share something earlier.
I was just, I'm a CPRW certified resume writer. And I wasn't taught this, but this was a comment. I mean, this was an idea I came up with. If you have a job history that's kind of short, but it's legit as far as, hey, is a temp agency, is a seasonal job. I have advised customers to put in parentheses, seasonal job,
Yes.
contract ended, laid
Yeah.
off, right next to the title.
Yes.
Just to help explain.
Absolutely. Yep. I wholeheartedly agree. Whether it's contract, seasonal, temporary, part-time, volunteer, anything like that, just to help to explain that this was a different kind of job. Or yes, to your point, Jen, that, you know, position was eliminated or downsized due to COVID. Actually, that's a very common phrase right now, and employers are very sensitive to that. So if you were laid off because of COVID, very appropriate for you to put that in parentheses for sure. Okay. All right. So I think we're good for now, unless anyone else has a last minute question or last minute comment. All right. So this concludes the official part of our HMM meeting. We'll be going right into our prayer session for those who would like to stick around. For everyone else, we'll look forward to seeing you next week. So have a blessed day, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.